Good afternoon, guys. I hope everyone is doing good. It is Thursday, the 29th of January, and this is your daily market outlook for today. Before we get into the charts, just a disclaimer, understand that the content on this channel is for educational and informational purposes only. I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing shared in these videos should be considered financial investment or trading advice. Always do your own research before making any financial decisions. Trading and investing always involves risk. So make sure that you guys understand that. Now, of course, let's jump straight into the charts and see what is going on today. But before we do that, as always, let's have a look at what is going on in regards to the economies of the currencies that we are trading. So, of course, yesterday we had Fed funds rate, FOMC press conference also at 8:30. I was expecting a little bit more volume into the markets, but of course, we do have unemployment claims today, which I'm pretty sure about an hour and 20 minutes away from me recording this, we will have some volume into this market. So yeah, keep an eye out on that at 2:30 my time, unemployment claims. And then of course tomorrow, but let's focus on unemployment claims today. So not much has changed in regards to, let me just move my camera. Not much has changed in regards to what is going on with the markets. Just to be truthful with you guys, if we look at the 4 hour, and let's just focus on this. Pardon me. We know that a daily leg is huge. We know that, of course, we have a lot of imbalance. We have a gap to potentially come and fill. And then also another confluence that we do have is we understand that we're inside of this daily demand area. Now, it's a bit of a weird one because the daily candle was just consolidated in this area. So obviously all yesterday it just consolidated inside this daily demand area, slowing down. But of course, if you look at the major pairs, which we will do in a second, you'll notice that the supply areas that they was in, they all broke out of and went higher. So unless one about USD CAD and USD CHF and so on. So yeah, a bit of a weird one in regards to that because there was barely any movement in this, demand candle. So of course, first thought is daily lower high, daily lower low, imbalances to fill. We have a demand area up here. We have a gap here as well. So can we see some sort of movement up from the long term? That is one scenario. But if we drop down to the four, what is the 4 hour telling us? Well, the 4 hour is telling us something a little bit different. And what the 4 hour is telling us at this moment in time is you can see that the trend has been, obviously down, lower low, lower high. We've had a lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, and a new lower low. So from where we're currently at, you guys should be able to, see. You should be able to see that this is our 4 hour lower high, and then this is still our 4 hour lower low. Now, of course, from a 4 hour structural point, what can you see that's happened? You can see that the market retraced a little bit. We've obviously pulled away, but we didn't mitigate the 4 hour supply area that we're looking for, and we haven't filled all of the imbalance in. Now, of course, what we like to see is if the market gets a retracement like it has done, we like to see, a full break, a full break. At this moment in time, we haven't quite had that. What's happening right now is my first thought is this, a fake out, if you want to call it that, to potentially get some people into short some of these areas. And then the market's going to obviously push higher and then come into this supply, filling this imbalance. And then does the market go away from here? That's my main thought looking at this currently. So yeah, let's see if that is what is the potential for this scenario with the US dollar because as I just mentioned, this could be used as our liquidity to target and then potentially, like I said, punch above, tap into the supply, filling it in balance, and then get that next 4 hour lower low printed out. Of course, if that doesn't happen and if we get a break above, then of course I'll be looking at longing from a 4 hour perspective, up to fill in, these imbalances and then see how it reacts from the unmitigated 4 hour supply areas that we do have, here marked out. So pretty simple to understand, but for now, let's focus on the range that we're in, which is this lower high to this lower low. And then that leads me on to your USD. Same scenario for Euro USD. Yesterday we didn't dip into this 4 hour demand area, of course, to look for them long opportunities. What happened is, of course, same scenario. This our 4 hour higher low, our 4 hour higher high. We come down, didn't tap into this demand, and we have not yet made that higher high. What could happen is potentially we dip, take out this liquidity low. Anyone that's at break even, anyone's at stop losses at this low, fill in the rest of this imbalance, and then can we see potentially that 4 hour higher high printed out? That is, one scenario, of course, that we can keep an eye on. Of course, if let's say the market doesn't come low to fill into this and we get another break of this high here, then you can potentially, depending on what the dollar's doing, look for them long ideas on Euro USD. So that's what I've got as for today. But again, a lot's going to happen potentially with unemployment claims today anyway. Going into GBP USD, same scenario, higher low 4 hour, higher low, higher high 4 hour. We've created some liquidity. We've not tapped into this demand area and filled in all of the imbalance. So what I'm waiting to see we can do is, can we dip, fill in this imbalance, and then potentially go and create that new 4 hour higher high using this low as a liquidity point where people potentially have, their stop losses or break evens set from the early buy scenario here. But yeah, man, of course, as I just mentioned, if the market does break above now and we don't come lower, we should then have a fresh demand area that we can then look to see if we can get that pullback on with GBP USD. NZUSD, been moving pretty smooth. I was waiting for this 4 hour demand area to, come back into where we're currently at. If I just look at the 1 hour, it's a little bit more clearer. We're in this 1 hour demand area as we speak. We're in this 1 hour demand area as we speak, and that's where we're currently getting that, movement from right now. So of course, understand that that is where we're at. We do have an unmitigated area for me here as a 1 hour demand area, and then also we have this area below. As of right now, of course, this is very nice to look at, very nice to look for longs to potentially go for buys, but just be aware that we do have news, like I said, in an hour and 5, 10 minutes or something. So just be aware of that if you are getting into any positions as we speak. Going into AUD USD, same scenario as NU, moving smoothly. They didn't come into this demand area here. As you can see, we're printing a new high, 4 hour higher high, 4 hour higher low. We have two scenarios where we have this 4 hour demand area here. And then we also have, so we have this 4 hour demand area here, and then we have where we're currently sat, which is this area now. So either way, if we are staying bullish with AUD USD, what you can expect. In fact, let's mark this out as this 1 hour demand area. What you can expect is either two scenarios if we do carry on bullish. The first scenario is we carry on bullish from here, we target this high as our liquidity. That is one scenario, of course. Or the second scenario is the market, uses early buyers in this area now. It creates these, lows as liquidity points where people's stop losses and break evens will be. And then what the market could potentially do is dip, fill in this imbalance, tap into this demand area, and then we could get that bullish movement away. So they're the two scenarios that I'll be keeping my eye on with AUD USD. And, would it surprise me as well? Understand that with big news events, there's always manipulation involved. Is this early buyers at this moment in time to then create liquidity, to then dip, to then go? That's just something that I'm always aware of. Doesn't always happen, of course, but just something that I am, like I said, aware of. Going into USD CAD, obviously 4 hour range is still from here. This is my 4 hour lower high, 4 hour lower low. We've got a lot of imbalance above, as well as this 4 hour supply that is unmitigated. And of course, on the 1 hour, we've been pretty corrective. So first thought is, ideally you want to see the market rebalanced here, potentially to then go and create that new 4 hour, lower low. But if you look at the one, you can see that with the 1 hour, it has been, 1 hour supply mitigated, 1 hour supply here mitigated, which we give out yesterday. So yeah, man, the next scenario would be simple. This 1 hour supply area as a potential supply area to sell off from. Um, that would be what I'd be looking for. But of course, that is on the 1 hour, so that is, the lower time frame. But as an overall higher time frame, it wouldn't surprise me if we come and take out the highs of this little trendline liquidity that's going on, and then potentially, punch up higher, fill in these imbalances that we have from the 4 and the 1, and then potentially this 4 hour supply, and then get that, that 4 hour range or that new 4 hour lower low potentially. That is from the 4 and the 1. Obviously, you guys can see that we are, or I am, should I say, pretty much focusing on the 4 and the 1 hour just for now because of that news event in an hour's time. But yeah, man, going into USD CHF, let's have a look. You can see currently, we have this 4 hour range, 4 hour lower high, 4 hour lower low. This is our 4 hour supply. You can refine this 4 hour supply to where the imbalance starts, which is around this area here. That's one scenario that you can give, but let's just focus on where it's currently at. We didn't tap into that supply. We still got some imbalance above. So, could we potentially, if the market does what we want it to do, which is not always the case, but if it does, can we dip above this, take out the early sellers, take out any stop losses, any break evens, fill in this imbalance, and then get that new 4 hour lower low? That is one potential that I would, potentially look out for with the 4 hour on USD CHF. So that is something to keep an eye on. Ooh, 1 second, what am I doing? That is something to keep an eye on from this area. And then USD Japanese yen was pretty much the same scenario as, USD CHF, where it's coming to this supply. We didn't quite tap into this area. And obviously we have moved away slightly. So can we potentially come above here and then react? Obviously that is pretty much filled in everything. So USD Japanese yen is not my favorite. Just to be real with you guys, we have a lot of imbalance above as well here. So it wouldn't be surprising if the market obviously did go higher to fill in that imbalance. So yeah, USD Japanese yen isn't my favorite. But the other major pairs, definitely keep an eye on what I mentioned going into the news event in an hour's time. And yeah, man, as always, I appreciate every single person plugging in. We're not going to go over the cross pairs at this moment in time. But yeah, other than that, have an amazing rest of your Thursday. Take care and God bless.